is Afraid is an actual fever dream. Genuinely liked it a lot, and I hated Midsommar. If you have heard from people that Beau is Afraid is like all shock, no meaning, wasted 3 hours.
What am I doing here?
Those people are dead wrong. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, if you didn't like it, you just didn't understand it. But genuinely, if you think there isn't meaning to this movie, then you absolutely did not understand it. Yes, this movie is about anxiety, paranoia, guilt, you know, mental health, parental trauma, but it is absolutely touching on themes like socioeconomic status, like with the homeless community, and then we see extreme examples of how there is pain and misery in the lower class, the suburban middle class, and with the higher class. Like, nobody in this movie is happy. Overprescribing medicine, big pharma. And then we touch on how the government has issues with the war in Venezuela and nationalism, police brutality, defund pigs, share wealth.
Do not move. I fucking said, do not move. Don't make me do this.
It is taking a satirical stab at our news resources. This literally touches on the biggest aspects of world affairs. And if you miss all of that,
I was thinking about a lot of things, you know, but yeah, I was thinking about pharmaceuticals. I was thinking about inheriting, you know, a world that's awful.
Beau is Afraid is basically Truman Show meets Black Mirror Season 2, Episode 2, White Bear. There is a lot of surrealism and symbolism with less narrative storytelling than Everything Everywhere All at Once. That did have more of a linear structure. Okay, spoilers. The mom with the toy boat and her son is extremely representative of the ending of the movie. The paranoia that Beau experiences started from when he was a kid.
People have bases in them.
What about rainbow cake?
The colors make cancer.
What about liquid shit?
This regular chocolate fountain, when he looks at it, he sees it's infested with flies. He catastrophizes everything. His version of how he sees the world is vastly different than what reality is, but that is his reality. Obviously, he's an unreliable narrator, so we have to view it through his viewpoint and just accept it. And a lot of people wanted a tether to reality, but I think we do have that. That is his reality. It's just hyperbole. It's an exaggerated version of real life. That lens of fear that he sees the world. Crime. Okay, well, he sees there's corpses on the ground, there's people just on the street. Here we see Grace handing out some soup to the tattooed man. There's danger everywhere. Worst case scenario, which we see here. Where we see his mind going to the absolute worst case scenario, then we snap back to reality and we see that that was just his imagination. This is the one tiny little treat that this movie gives you, that we tether back to reality, but that needs to inform how you view the rest of the movie. For the entire thing, you have to understand these hyper extreme situations are what Beau is imagining will happen. MW, Mona Wasserman production. It's at the beginning. When we see all the production companies, we see MW. So we can assume that the entire movie is a production made by Mona. What does this mean? I'm playing with some theories. Obviously, I'm not Ari and I'm not close to him, so I can't assume to know what any of this means, and these are my interpretations, but I think they're pretty good. Okay. Everything is orchestrated by Mona Wasserman. The house that Beau lives in, that was a rehabilitation project made by Mona. The drugs that he takes, her. MW is on the food he eats, his microwave, it's on every single piece of his life. The people he sees around him working for her. The tattooed guy is in the picture.
You're fucked.
Hey, Kai. Welcome back.
Also, the statue. He drops it with the cop and it falls to pieces. He runs into the street and that's when Grace runs over him. She wouldn't have seen him drop the statue. The cop wouldn't have cared. How did that statue get back? Obviously that statue we see is a huge statue in Mona's yard. This billboard says, "Betray your mother." With that billboard, this is Beau's reality because we see all these sexualized signs. That's his interpretation of the world. We might go so far as to say that this is Mona's description of the events that happened. Because when we see Beau with his therapist, he doesn't say anything. He's very like insecure. He's very submissive.
Expectations.
I don't think he would ever admit out loud the things that we hear Mona playing back in the supposed tape with his therapist.
She'd take all those changes very personally and get very bad or sad and make me feel bad about it until I stopped. I give it back to her in the exact same way. She saw it as me being not thankful and like trying to hurt her.
Where he sounds confident, he sounds like he's thought out all of these, you know, deep thoughts about his mom and come to conclusions about her, but I don't think he would even admit them to himself, never mind to anyone else. Also, where's the therapist after he kills his mom? He just lets him leave out on the boat? I do think that she was monitoring his therapy sessions. You see this flashing red light, but I think this recording that she has isn't real because he was not talking like that. Nowhere in the entire movie was he that confident when he spoke, except for...
Just tell me the truth! Why did you lie to me?
This is Mona's production over-exaggerating the events. Like we see she over-exaggerates his proof that he is such a horrible person and a horrible son.
She cries out for the boy who was in fact hiding behind a corner, watching the whole thing.
He hides behind the pillar. He didn't even breastfeed on me.
That happy, docile babies sucking their tits dry.
That the subject will go out of his way to feed a bird or a fish, but not to support a suffering member of his own species.
You need to stop the humiliation. It's all that's being asked of you.
As if he wasn't literally unconscious and had no choice in the matter. Her proof that he's horrible in all these tiny minuscule details that aren't even a big deal. So like that recording of his therapy sessions is Mona's interpretation. This is her production and what she's showing us, the jury. Or this is Beau hyper paranoid about what he thinks would happen with Mona. I think the therapy sessions happened the way they did, and the recording that Mona has did not happen. If this is Mona's version of events, this is her production, remember, maybe that's why Beau can fast forward on channel 78, because we skip through and see pieces of the entire rest of the movie. So that means this is a movie that Mona is showing us. Or it could mean that the rest of his life is in the decisions that he makes. Like, it's in the palm of his hands. He has the ability to take charge and change the path of his life, change his future. If this is Mona's production made for us, the jury, that would explain why all the women, the young women that we see that are competition for Beau's affection, Elaine and Toni, the daughter, are portrayed as vulgar, rude girls. They're erratic, mean to their parents. The type of girls he's been noticing.
Because I've noticed you noticing certain types.
You mean my bed? Wait, she's taking me off the ship.
They both die in the same petrified way. Their eyes are very similar when they die. I really think that if this is a production put on by Mona, that's why these girls are portrayed like that. She's trying to scare Beau away from them. So the adopted sister, Toni, there's a lot of pink and blue symbolism here, which are obviously the stereotypical colors for a boy and a girl. Her room is hyper feminine, like very, very pink, full of all these posters of boy bands, K-pop. She just doesn't seem like a feminine, girly girl to me. Not that there's anything wrong with those types of people, but she doesn't seem very feminine to me. Her name is Toni, and it's a bit of an androgynous name, but I do think that this is representing something. So Toni takes pink paint and paints Beau's name onto the blue wall of her dead brother. And then she, you know, swallows the blue paint.
Like, we have a totally empty room available, completely unused.
Fine, you fucking pussy.
I can't figure out what this means. I really tried hard. I don't get it, like the colors, but I do think there is a reason. I'm just gonna say that. Toni tries to get them both to kill themselves, and he doesn't do it with her.
You can't get fucking fucked up with me!
I think this part is just Beau wondering what would happen if he actually finally killed himself. I'm sure he's wondered about it, how to escape this hell that he's living in. And I'm not sure if Toni actually died or if it's just his paranoia again. But maybe she did die, but she just OD'd or something, and that's why Jeeves is sent after Beau. But I don't think she actually dies in this extreme fashion.
Her cheerleader friend, she's constantly filming Beau, and she shows up in the play. She's one of the only people that's like very explicitly in the play world. And I think that's just representing how he's always like being filmed. There's surveillance, no autonomy. He's always being watched. The adopted family, obviously they lost their son and they can't cope. They're neglecting their daughter by adopting these fake sons. Jeeves, Beau, they only care about sons in their life, not daughters. Jeeves killed their son and they're still willing to take him in as a hero.
Not the enemy, his own squawk, he's a hero.
The war in Venezuela and nationalism.
Extreme patriotism for their country.
They're holding him captive, but then he's held outside like a dog. And this is what my roommate also said to me. I think he's a dog. And then we see this imagery.
It will tear through the world to find you.
Obviously, this Jeeves is a dog. That makes sense why he's being held outside. So I think the test with the adopted family, Grace, isn't only if he'll finally stand up and be like, yes, take me tonight. It's also, in my opinion, he finally does have a taste of what this loving family that he's always wanted would be like. You know, loving parents, a sister, a home. And it's if he'd want to stay with them instead of going back to his mom.
You built your stupid set!
This empathetic adopted mom, Grace, she's like, okay, this poor kid, don't incriminate yourself because of this.
Feeling sad about going home, Beau? Must feel totally unreal.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right. So, not sad exactly.
I mean, yes, of course.
Do you ever wish that she was dead?
What?
So obviously Mona supplies all of their intense pill addiction, like even the kid is popping pills like candy. So I think that's what Mona has over them, how she got them to do her dirty work and, you know, paying them money just like she did with Martha.
That was a dream. No, that's a bad dream. That's okay.
The dream sign above his head, and also when he looks in the forest, dream on the poster. Because Jeeves is quite literally proven a connection to a dog, I can also infer that the man above his bathtub was actually just a spider all along. No one could hold on that long. I think he's just a spider because none of the homeless people actually got into his apartment building. All of that was just in his head.
You could ask my advice, you know.
I gotta go. Okay.
Good old Carl.
Movies are a business, okay? He's not just some like happy-go-lucky fella who wanted to do a little thing. He had to pitch this project to a lot of people with money, to the producers, to the investors. Every single piece of the story he had to fight probably tooth and nail to keep in there. It's not just for the art. They care about the money, the return of investment. He had to convince them that every single piece of that script was necessary to keep in. The people who put $35 million into the movie were convinced, and therefore every piece of the movie was important. Like, yeah, bad movies get made, but not by A24. You know? Same with people complaining about the penis monster. I think that is extremely intentional. It's not just to be crude and crass and like phallic jokes. There is a lot of graffiti and like city signs that have sexual innuendo. I think it's a little too on the nose. Like, we get it. He's sexually repressed. The penis monster, It's a bit out there and it did lose some people, but let me explain, after thinking about it, why I think it's necessary. Ari made everything very specific in the same way that in The White Lotus, they chose specific paintings to be in certain rooms. They weren't just like willy-nilly. If you, again, think about this from a business aspect, not only are you writing everything in the script very specifically, which obviously Ari did, but he hires art designers, set decorators. You take a blank room, either it's filmed in a house that they rent or a stage that they build. This is going to be a blank bedroom. Every single one of those pieces of artwork, these pillows, they are placed there for a reason. On cheaper productions, yeah, like they'll just go and buy stuff to fill up the room to make it look real. But on creative sets like this one, everything is placed there very, very specifically, like in White Lotus. Suzanne Collins, when she wrote The Hunger Games, there's a character named Titus. He is a cannibal in the book. So if you look up the origin of the name Titus, in Shakespeare, Titus, I think Andronicus, was also a cannibal in Shakespeare's play. That's where she got the name from. So like very specific, intentional details. And that's why there is no chance that I think this color symbolism, all these things that happen in this movie are coincidental or accidental. Sometimes it's a joke that like English professors, teachers try to like hyperanalyze why the door is blue, but it was just blue. But this is not the case for this movie. I genuinely think everything is extremely intentional.